Hey everybody, Marcus here. There's still a very large contingent of people who support marriage. Conservative commentators are amongst those who, well, despite the evidence to the contrary, cling to the idea that marriage is a good idea given modern laws. I want to call a truce with such individuals. There's no reason to fight them on an agenda they seem dead set on pushing anyways. Religious communities still push for marriage. Marriage is here to stay regardless of what its fate looks like in the West alone. Personally, I have no problem with skydivers, running with the bulls, or marriage for that matter. Whatever extreme sport one wishes to participate in is up to them. But, as far as safety measures within marriage are concerned, I will make a suggestion. A recommendation that I think your typical religious conservative can get behind. And that is Marriage Classic. Marriage Classic is not marriage reform. Marriage laws can continue to exist as they are. Marriage Classic is new legislation. Legislation that can happily coexist with marriage as it is today. The two shall be isolated from each other, and other than sharing the word marriage in their titles, need have nothing more to do with each other than that. Much like JavaScript and Java are languages that exist independently of each other yet share the same word, namely Java. In 2004, Blizzard Entertainment released World of Warcraft, the massive multiplayer online role-playing game that became loved by many. Over the 20 years since the game's release, a large number of expansions were introduced. These expansions can be viewed analogously to the marriage reform that has taken place since the advent of marriage all those thousands of years ago. Yet, these World of Warcraft expansions, while in their attempt to improve and refine the game, have made World of Warcraft unplayable to the vast majority of people who loved the original release. The expansion, entitled Cataclysm, so aptly named, was indeed a cataclysm for those who enjoyed the game in its original form. Blizzard, after years of nagging by their player base, put up servers hosting the version of WoW that existed in its original 2004 manifestation. This, in turn, was branded World of Warcraft Classic. World of Warcraft Classic coexists with World of Warcraft in its modern form. Players may choose which incarnation of the game they wish to play. Everyone got what they wanted. Those who wanted retail could continue to play retail. Those who wanted classic could now play classic. So too, Marriage Classic can be the parallel set of laws and legislation as far as marriage is concerned. The religious conservatives are free to take a blank piece of paper and draft the Marriage Classic laws as God intended, or as they imagine God intended. I would presume these laws would resemble the laws prior to the feminist DLC introduced in the 20th century. The feminist DLC is considered the cataclysm of marriage law by many. We need not fight the feminists or any other powers who for one reason or another believe marriage law is fine as it is today. They can keep marriage. For those, however, who like the older version of marriage law, will have Marriage Classic. Whether or not Marriage Classic is an idea that would ever be brought into being, there is merit for political-minded commentators to take it up as part of their discourse. Marriage Classic would have one fundamental idea behind it, an idea that cannot be reformed through further legislation. Marriage Classic will be a lifelong contract that cannot be dissolved under any circumstances. Marriage Classic, much like marriage, are opt-in contracts. No one is forced to participate in either. As Marriage Classic would be brand new legislation, no existing persons would be affected by its introduction. As such, introducing such legislation should be far simpler than reforming the bloated and decaying set of existing marriage laws. Why reform when we can start anew? The very act of pushing for such legislation, whether or not it was successful, would force the debate over marriage law into the mainstream sphere of discourse. The divorce industry would be threatened. There would be enormous resistance to the idea of Marriage Classic. However, if a savvy politician played his cards right, he would be able to weaponize the idea of Marriage Classic as a way of stirring controversy. Controversy would get him attention. As Marriage Classic would appeal to both religious and generally conservative voters, this politician would win over voters. Whether or not said politician is able to bring Marriage Classic into law is actually irrelevant. The fight itself will have been the victory. Said politician would win supporters that would translate into future voters for him. In turn, the discourse and drama of the fight would force the conversation, which is in itself a victory. If I was a low-ranking politician with aspirations for high office, I would run in races that I knew I would lose. However, awareness of my inevitable loss would reframe the purpose for which I was running. I would not be running to win. I would be running to market myself with the demographics I would consider my voter base. I would be building a public reputation as to what I stand for. Since I would not be elected anyways, there would be no promises I would be held to account for. As such, I would attempt to leverage drama to garner attention for myself. And nothing causes more drama than to threaten an industry as large as the divorce industry. Since important elections have established media events already in place, I would piggyback on these platforms to stir this drama. The Republican Party candidate Vivek Ramaswamy seems to be doing exactly this. Whether or not he is genuine about what he says is immaterial. He knows he can't win, so he runs to market himself now, in preparation for an election he might actually win in the future. Marriage Classic would be good drama for a similar candidate in a similar election run. Well, at least this is my theory. I'm not a politician, though. Thanks for listening. Go team.